let's get started. We're really lucky at BAND to be in a space that has come to us through support of Scotiabank. So we want to thank them for their partnership that allows us to be in this house at 19 Brock at the corner of Queen and Queen and Lansdowne. We were at Queen and Lansdowne. That's where we started with them, but now we're at Queen, West and Brock, actually at the corner of Brock and Noble in a Black Victorian house. So if you've not been to our spot and you are not comfortable entering spaces because of everything that's happening with COVID-19 and the recent spike, please take advantage of our public art installation, which is on the fence. And there's new work that is actual sister images to the work that is in the gallery for Dawit's current exhibition. So there are images outside that are not inside. So if you see one or the other, hopefully you'll be happy that you left your home to take in a bit of art in a safe way. If you're coming to the gallery, we're taking appointments that are pre-booked with time visits that are isolation visits. So we're happy if you come on your own or with folks who are within your safety bubble, so that we're doing our part to keep ourselves safe, but also, you know, staying inspired as we take in some art. As I said previously, for those who came in a bit earlier, Dawit's artwork is something we're super excited about. The history buff in me, I spent most of my career on the history side of the museum world. Didn't know as much about the East African history of the Italo-Ethiopian wars from 1896 and 1935. So this exhibition was really great to get an opportunity to dive into the history, but even more so just because of the gorgeous images and the stories that come with the patriots who are descendants of or actual veterans from that war in 35. His conversation today will be with the co-curator for the exhibit that is happening right now at BAND, Belinda, who is in Edmonton and is an emerging curator who does a lot of work with the youth in the community there, and specifically with the young, the come up, I believe. Is it Yem? I always mess it up.
Yeah.
YG, the come up, there you go. It's a very cool, hip name, and I'm clearly not that cool and hip, and that's why I can't remember it properly. But that's how we met. I went to Edmonton to talk to some folks in 2019 about trying to figure out how to get a Black Cultural Center and some community stuff going there, and that's how Belinda and I came to know each other. So we're super excited that one of the gifts, if one can say they're gifts of COVID, is that we're all more savvy online and learning to do things that allows us to get opportunities to young people. I'm going to also thank RBC for this specific program, which is our Emerging Artists program that allows opportunities for mentorship, professional development, and exhibition presentations. Dawit's show is one of two. Coming up after him is Crystal's work, and she is a painter and mixed media artist who will be showing in November. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to Belinda and Dawit to take it away and to lead the conversation. We have a couple of guest speakers, so I'm going to just start before they take over by thanking Stephen Bulger for taking time. A lot of you know him for his work with the Stephen Bulger Gallery and his knowledge and expertise specific to photography, so we're really grateful that he's taken some time this afternoon to be engaged in this conversation with us and to share some of his expertise. Belinda, Dawit, I'm looking forward to the chat. It's over to you.
Hello, I just want to thank everyone. My name is Belinda Uwase, and I'm living in Edmonton, studying here and working with the Africa Center and like the youth collective YG The Come Up, as she mentioned. I want to thank BAND for the opportunity to curate this and work alongside Dawit. I relate to the project especially as another East African of Rwandan descent, and I look forward to diving into more of the work and talking to Dawit about his process and so forth. And so my first question for you is more about the background and how you came to photograph all of the subjects and how this idea played out.
Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone for attending this. So having this collection, we have as you know from the history of Ethiopia, we have so many victory days to celebrate because of like heroic patriots we had. So like through those like celebrations, Victory Days celebration. So I was attending those events like, since childhood. You see them on TV, you see them like in different events and so on. So growing up, seeing that, and when I become a photographer and storyteller, like that's the first thing I wanted to tell, because like that's what's inside you in the first place, right? So I focused on those, and accessing them wasn't that much like a challenge, because like on those events, like having a camera and like professionally approaching them and talking to them to take their photographs, they will love that, because like they see us our sons, like as grandkids. So like they want to show us, they want to tell us stories, because they want to embed that patriotism and their spirits through us, and they have so many stories to tell, so they were so willing to do so. And I'm a proud son of Ethiopia, representing them in this kind of like situations, keeping their pride, keeping their authenticism and like their true selves in these portrait photographs.
Awesome. And so when you photographed them, did you initially plan to showcase the art? And if not, why? If yes, why?
Yeah, so the first aim I had was to showcase them. So like after in every event I photograph, I print the good photographs I take, and I share them their photographs, because they deserve to see themselves in their own way. And also there is a Ethiopian Patriots Association, and when you go to their office, they don't have anything to display on their wall. And also they spend so much time like in that office, but they don't see themselves in there. So I used to print the big size printers of not this collection, but other like photographs. And I used to give them so that they can see themselves. They can have something to show when everybody comes to meet them. So I used to print and give them to them. And I did 2 shows locally in Ethiopia in different teams, because like this is one side of portraying the patriots, but they have different events, they have different kind of like festivals throughout the year. So I have so many collections as well. But getting together this series of work, and as freedom fighters, and like having this kind of collection is the first time to do so. And I believe it's very important also to get this work out in the Western world, because I believe those stories are not known to the Western world, and also to all Black people who are out of away from the East African history. So showcasing this work is also very important in Toronto and like in the Western world, I believe so.
Yeah, I agree. Especially like the Eastern African history and telling of our stories. Could you elaborate more on like how this exhibition came to be and why it's so important for us to tell our stories and what that means to you specifically?
Yeah, so like coming from East Africa, you will share that story to me as well, because we have like very low representations. So like in the news, in the media, all over the internet, when you search about those countries, you'll see like poverty, you'll see drought, you'll see like all negative things, and like political diversity and things like that. And that's not only the story we have, right? So I want to share other parts of the story. So like representing this pride history for us as Ethiopians, as East Africans, as all Africans, and as a Black people, it's very important, because we need to have like to be proud. We need to have like a good story that we tell our minds to, because like all our lives, like is a history also, like just like the news, just like our representation, the news has told us, like, you know, we have been colonized, we have been, like, you know, segregated by, like, you know, racism, and also, like, you know, politics and things like that. And also I'm here to show that we don't only have those, we have also prideful, victorious and good stories as well. So it's very important. We Ethiopians know it because as I said, we have so many victory days and our history is like that. But coming here, this side of the world needs really to know that. And I'm proud to showcase that and represent that.
Yeah, thank you. I also wanted to touch on, as a photojournalist, why you choose portraiture as a medium, and like why that's something that you chose to like focus in on for your art and your photography, and what interests you about portraiture.
Through portraiture, like you see a lot of things, and like there are like so many mediums of storytelling. There are music, there are like movies, there are like, you know, poems, books and everything. But like the visual storytelling is very important because it's not about like, you don't express those things, like, because there is like a very renowned saying like, one picture is 1,000 words. And also that's not enough too, because like when you see the photograph, when you see their facial expression, when you see their fashion, when you see their, like, you know, proudness, and like you will really connect to the people, like you are really there and you really read those faces. And all of us has different impression of those connections we have. And I believe they are like really, portraiture is really powerful in communicating that alongside. And these people are like really direct representatives of those patriots and those history. They are photographed like in a way they are just themselves, because I don't think I mentioned that in the opening, but like I don't tell them to pose. So like when I had this opportunity to photograph, so like it was like on March 2015, and it was after like the main celebration like has been held, and there was like a green wall like around the celebration area, and I saw that, and it was like it has a beautiful reflection of light, and like I thought like they should be individually photographed, because like having them like really individually is also really important, because like when you see, like when you hear one story, for instance, like when you talk about the Battle of Adwa and the victory, we talk about the leader of that war, or the emperor or the leader of that country. But yes, that is important, and that is also because he's the leader, he said so, and things like that. But like the ones who really like fought the war and faced there and sacrificed themselves, we don't hear those individual stories. So I believed like I need to take individual photographs, all of them, and I need to portray them as much as possible. So with that idea, like I had them, and like as soon as they're like on my frame, on that like good background, like I'm gonna say like just be what you wanna be, and like give me like, you know, like good poses, like express yourself and things like that. And like I just take the moment, and just because it's candid, just because like they're themselves, you see their like true expression in their photographs. And like I'm an Ethiopian, I communicate with their language, and I truly respect them. And also this is like really after like in between and after like the celebration. So the celebration is filled with music, filled with like, you know, performances, filled with respect, and like they're really proudful, they're really in the mood, and they're like really back to that moment. So like that is exactly the perfect moment to take their portraits. And that's, I believe everyone loved portraits because it really captures the true essence of themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I love the green background, how it contrasts against the uniform. I think it's really great juxtaposition. And I also wanted to talk, as you already kind of touched on it, like your process for photography. You talked about how they're candids and how you're not asking them to pose. Is that your usual process, or does it depend on context and what kind of subjects you have? As in, here was a celebration, it was not something planned. But yeah, just your process of photography.
Yeah, so as a storyteller, like there are like different kind of photography I do. So like in photojournalism and documentary photography, I believe like if it's staged, if I tell you what to do, you are not being yourself, you are not true to yourself. And that will be like commercial kind of photography, right? So that's not authentic, that's not true. So if I want to tell your story, I have to let you be who you are, like just the way you are. And that's like my assignment as a photographer, because I have to make you comfortable. I have to make you feel just like you are. Because like if I'm not making you feel good, if I'm not comfortable around you, if I don't develop that kind of connection in between like me and you, I'm not a good photographer. I'm not catching the essence and the truth of yourself. So like I think like this work is like very powerful because like I'm from there and I have true connection towards them. Like they are like father figure, mother figure for myself. So I truly connect with them. So they quickly develop that trust of being themselves and showing exactly themselves to me, because like I'm a son figure to them as well. So having that kind of connection is, I believe it's very important as a photographer. And also like if I don't have like, I don't have to be like that kind of situation, but as a photographer, I need to have that kind of communication with them. So like, like when you approach them, you feel them, they are comfortable, you feel them, you understand them, and things like that. So like for photographers out there, and I get that from like my mentor photographers, and that's how I get to know, and that's how I get to learn photography to do so. So like in order like to photograph, like like you have to study like the subject you are taking. You have to study like the photographs and the subject you are going to take before you take the photograph.
Okay.
Right. So like getting to know the people and understanding them and developing that like very genuine communication and the relationship you have, it really shows in your photograph at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, I definitely think it shows. I also wanted you to touch on the medals that are shown in the images.
Yeah.
You could
So
elaborate on what they mean. Yeah.
Yeah, as you heard, like Karen when she was telling, and we were like we are sharing that information from day one. And these are the people who are like the descendants of the real patriots who have been in the war, in the first battle of Adwa in 1896, and the second Ethio-Italian war in 1935 to 41. So the uniforms you see are their like father figure and their family members. So because like these people has been like in their very young age when these wars happened. So like like they say like when they wear these medals, when they wear these clothes, they represent like their like father, mother, because most of them has been passed away during the war and after, because so they are commemorating their like true proudness, and they're commemorating true sacrifice to their country. And most of them has medals like on their side of the chest, and there are like 4 kind of medals that has been displayed in many of the patriots. So one of them is the recognition they had for the success and or for the victory of the Battle of Adwa, and it has like the face of the Emperor Menelik, just like a coin kind of figure, and it has like a description in Amharic saying like thank you for your sacrifice and thank you and for the service you have done in the Battle of Adwa. So you can see that like with their face and so on. And the second one is for their victory on the Second Ethio-Italian War, and that has been given by the Emperor Haile Selassie, the Lion of Judah, and that has been given them after the success of and the fully domination of the country back in May 5, 1941. And the third medal like that has been displayed is after like Ethiopia joined the League of Nations and the United Nations, and Ethiopia has been in two countries leading the peacekeeping mission. So there was like a civil war in Democratic Republic of Congo, and Ethiopian troops has been sent to help manage the peacekeeping mission, and these families and some of the exact people who are portrayed here are also part of that. So and they have been successfully settled their mission. So after like they came to their motherland, they have been given that medal as well. And you see that medal displayed with like an African map, and it has a bold mark in the map of the DRC country, the Democratic Republic of Congo. So that is the third one that has been displayed in most of the patriots here. And the fourth one is the same, the peacekeeping mission, and that has been displayed as the Korea, and also like the same kind of history. The Korean War also was happened during that time, and through the peacekeeping mission for the United Nations, they have been there, and they have been honored to do that. So like the majority of those are like the medals are like that. So if you are seeing the display now, so the first one is given by the Emperor Haile Selassie. You see their medal and their face in the medal, and the second one is it says victory star, and the Amharic one says, I don't think you see my cursor around here, and it says for the invaluable and for the unforgettable sacrifice and for the will you have done for the country. And it says Yedil Kokev, that means victorious star. And the third one is also Emperor Haile Selassie's, and it has been given for the victory as well. So majorly, they have been given for the major of the four wars and accomplishments they have done in their lifetime.
Okay. Also, some of the subjects that were photographed were women, and so we had talked about this in the opening with the interview with the president of the Ethiopian Patriots Association, and he talked about the contribution of women, and so I just wanted to ask you if you could elaborate on that as well.
Yeah, so like the president of the association, Lich Daniel, really briefed us and they briefed us the real contributions they had in the Ethiopian wars. And I just want to emphasize and like tell that to everyone, because like just like our everyday life, women are like really part of our everyday life, and they are really part of us. And like we don't exist without contribution of women in our everyday life. I sincerely believe that. And imagine having a war and not having a woman, because like you need them the most in those kind of situations, especially like, you know, when you are like you know, you need immediate assistance, you need immediate support, you need immediate you know, you kind of people to be behind you in such kind of scarce and hard times. So I believe that their contribution is so big, and the president also emphasized on that, and we could have done it without them. And they have like big role in the wars ahead. And he told us they have been in the front line, having guns and having the military like equipments and facing the war. We had them cooking for us, cooking for the patriots and for the warriors in the field. There have been medical assistants who have been you know, fixing the wounds, you know, helping them assist and so on, and just like doing the major work as part of it. Yeah, and also leading the war, like being part, especially on the first Battle of Adwa, like side by side with the Emperor Minilik. The second, there was like an empress. Her name is Empress Taitu. So she had been also like in the imperial, you know, leading and deciding and being the leader of the war as well. So I sincerely, because like most of the world, especially like still today, are like being seen as women being like, you know, a minority, being underestimated and things like that. And like I'm here to tell you that like that is like a stereotype and undermination that has been given by the society. But like through those wars and today and in our everyday life, women is play a very important role in our everyday life and in this war as well.
Yes, I agree. Also, I wanted to ask you, as an Ethiopian who who was able to talk to them in Amharic, and we will touch on like the portrait series specifically later, but just briefly how that influenced your work, being able to ask them and interview them about their stories.
Yeah, so communication is very important. Even like me understanding both languages, so if you really ask me like very emotional and very intimate kind of question, like me explaining to you in English won't do the justice, because like your mother tongue is like very intimate to you, very intimate to you. And like it will be like really express your feeling, emotions, and so on. So me talking to them in Amharic and sharing them, like, because they tell me they have stories, they have like great things great things to tell. So like sharing them and hearing them in Amharic and asking them, following up with them, and like with like very attendant attention, and like you know, being enthusiastic about their stories and things like that is very important. And also there's like me asking them those questions, they tell the stories not as a peer, not as like, you know, like as a kind of just being proud and so on. They tell you because they believe like you need to have that kind of spirit as the next generation of the country. So they tell you as a responsibility, they tell you as like their like that's their only voice and so on. So like even now I record the stories and I hear back when I need inspiration, when I need to really feel that them and so on. So it's really important to have a local person asking questions and having those conversations.
Awesome. All right, lastly, I'm gonna get Claudia to queue up 2 reference images that show the composition of light and dark. And then I just wanted you to elaborate on like how that happened. So those are the 2 images showcasing how like there's shade, and just elaborate on like the sun and how that played out and how that process happened.
Yeah, so there was like a window like that reflects the sun towards this wall, and that is the first inspiration I had when I see this wall and this part of the side, because like when you have the light, it differentiates you know, like, and it is like on the side of the side of their face, so it differentiates the closest, so you see the light and dark, the light and shadow part, so it differentiates their face. You see the structure of the face on them, you see the details of their clothes, you see the details of their medals in their photograph. So it was like really perfect place to be that light on. And like in portraiture, like lighting your things on the side as a profile is very important, because it really shows the depth and the detail of those photographs. And you see that reflection on the wall as well, because it has like shadows on the side. So it really gives that 3D kind of feeling on the photographs. And also the light was golden, so it also gives that warm feeling in it. So it has like the color temperature also become like vintage kind of look that gives him, like, you know, it's old age and its history, and it really takes you back to those days, because if it's vibrant, it is high saturated and so on, like it feels like a contemporary kind of photograph. But this is history. We are talking about the history of like 80 years back and 100 years back. So having that vintage look also really helps.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I love it. It's so nice. Yeah. All right. I think we're gonna go into the portrait stories, which I alluded to a little bit when I asked you about how you speaking to them in their native tongue in Amharic influenced your work. And so Dawit was able to interview some of the subjects photographed and ask them about their stories. And so they've been translated in English. And Lelu Sammy will be reading some of the stories, and I'll have Claudia cue up the slideshow so that you guys can also see the pictures as well as the stories displayed while she reads these aloud.
So this is Patriot 50 Aleka Alemu Mersha 2015. I was 50 Aleka, a title for a war leader who manages 50 soldiers under their leadership. Whether you view that as big or small, leading people, especially in a military service during a deadly war, requires a strong and firm character. Convincing and motivating soldiers to go into battle and fight against the fascists at the cost of their own lives was very hard. But the promise we made to our country and our need to be a free nation kept us going. Burying the ones we lost, strengthening the weakened, and maintaining the rest to stand strong against the Italians for 5 consecutive years was a very tough road, but we won in the end. It was the honor of a lifetime to stand in solidarity for my country, Ethiopia. I wouldn't be myself if I sat back and watched an immoral terrorist exploit my land. It's not in our Ethiopian blood. Generating team spirit, motivating our hero soldiers to stand with me and devote their life to their country and our freedoms was the right thing to do as 50 Aleka. Rest in peace to those who lost their life for Ethiopia. You all are forever in the hearts of Ethiopian generations to come. They are in debt to you. We celebrate you and thank you for your service. This is Patriot Mamitu Meheritu 2015. I was a baby when the Second Italo-Ethiopian War began. My mother traveled with my father's military troop to provide food, supplies, and other basic support on the battlefields. She used to carry me on her back, and she took me with her to the battlefront as she could not leave me alone. My mom used to make food for all the troops and their families during the night because most of the battles happened after dark. The war stories I was told by my parents growing up had a huge impact on me and made me realize how dedicated and devoted they were to assuring their country's unity and freedom. The sacrifices they made on the battlefields, the risks they took by knowingly facing the Italians who had advanced military tools with only their swords and manual guns shows real courage. Those 5 years were so precarious. I was lucky my parents were in the few who returned back home. Part of my family died in the war, and to try to return to regular life without them was tough. But we will remember them always and honor them for giving us their one and only life in exchange for Ethiopia's freedom and dignity. They are freedom fighters to the maximum. Patriot Mamitu Meheritu. Patriot Nigisti Zud, 2015. I'm sorry if I'm butchering their names, anybody. I share almost the same life story with Patriot Mamitu. Both our mothers had been on the same trip, supporting the same military troop. She is my lifelong friend. I consider her my sister. Our parents were brought together to protect the motherland. They did the best they could to ensure Ethiopia's victory and free the country from terror and the inferno the Italians brought back to our country. Having to sacrifice the lives of your family and friends, your people, to fight for what you believe in has been the hardest, but most significant lessons I have had to learn. I carry this with me. With this sacrifice comes a great responsibility for both me and my children to be successful in all we do and to keep our country free and out of poverty. Patriot Negasti Zude. Patriot Bezune Feru, 2015. I have a strong memory of traveling for several days barefoot from the southern part of Ethiopia with my family. We took the journey in groups, passing the time with different social activities, singing songs that empowered nationality and liberation, or doing shillelah, a freestyle poem performance. Resting in the day and traveling by night through the wild. That is when true patriotism was stamped into my heart. I didn't fear anything, even though I didn't know, and I was quite young. And although I couldn't fully grasp what was happening, the invasion was very difficult to ignore. Our patriots in the Italian force were very different in firepower. We had swords, manual guns, and horses, while they had warplanes, bombs, tanks, and several kinds of weapons that could volley multiple shots in seconds. However, their technology is not what amazes me, but rather our patriots' commitment. They didn't surrender and give hands, which means give up. They all stood up together and fought back. After 5 bloody years, we won. I lost my father on those battlefields. Even though I was too young to really remember how that moment felt, I can still hear his voice and can picture him wearing his uniform and doing shillelah. It is because of him that we are free, and I salute him every single day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank Stephen Bulger for joining us and just introduce him as he will be commentating on his expertise in photography. So yeah, thank you, Stephen Bulger of the Stephen Bulger Gallery.
Oh, thanks. It's really my pleasure. Thank you for putting this exhibition together, and for Karen for bringing it to my attention, and especially to Dawit for this really remarkable body of work that I find I'm always expecting a lot of photographers, and you did exactly what I want people to do, which is to find something that you know about and you have a special access to, and then report on it as best as you can to bring that to us, because I had no idea about any of this history until I started looking at these pictures. And I liked hearing what you said about how you approach portraiture, because it is very much a collaboration between you and your subjects. And I think you know, the stories that you've brought forward are a result of taking care in that collaboration and thinking about what it was that you wanted out of the project, but being very mindful and respectful of the people that you were photographing. Because I don't think that photography is as objective as it is believed to be, that I find it's very subjective. And I'm always very conscious of the photographer being what I call a biased witness, because they have a preconceived notion of what they want to capture and what they want to show to us. So this really moves away from traditional photojournalism, which is really concentrated on spot news and finding what's in front of the camera and really only photographing what's there. But now as we're moving forward and we need more sophisticated reporting, the type of work that you're doing helps us arrive at a much deeper truth, I think. Karen had mentioned a few of the people that I work with that I think she was remembering as a result of your work. And one is, I hope this works out okay in terms of showing, I didn't know exactly how to do this in a low-tech way, but we'll see how this goes. Yeah. So these are portraits, maybe that's less glare there, by Louis Palu, a Canadian photojournalist who was embedded in Afghanistan during the height of the war there. And he became very interested in the soldiers that he was embedded with. So these are American soldiers who were fighting in the the Afghanistan war. And, you know, and these people are in their early 20s. But when you can see what's embedded in their face after such a short period of time, it's really remarkable to see, you know, those traces of history that get ingrained on our faces. So I think certainly stylistically, I can see some common ground, and especially your use of lighting in terms of having that side lighting and making the best use of natural light. You know, I think these are also striking portraits. When I was thinking though about this way that you're representing history, that is something that's very interesting for me, because there's a notion there that you're also representing time, and seeing that layering of time between your sitters and what they're wearing and bringing together these different generations. That definitely, for me, brought to mind some work that Dawit Tibebu did called the Birmingham Project. And hopefully I can pull this without, there we go. So this is the book that I'm showing it from. And the Birmingham Project, it relates to the tragedy that happened in 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama at the 16th Street Baptist Church, where the Ku Klux Klan had laid some bombs with the intention of harming people. And they did. They harmed a few young girls. Later on in the day, the Klan also harmed a couple of boys. And so what Dawit wanted to do was make these double portraits. And similar to your work, Dawit, he doesn't pose them. He photographed them separately. That boy and that man had never met before. The boy is the age of one of the young children that died on that day. And the man is what the age would have been had that murder not taken place. And the way that he presented them as diptychs, I thought were really quite touching. And also that he did the diptychs after taking the pictures. So each portrait session was individual, and it was mostly the formal similarities between different sitters that he started to notice as, like after he had made the prints, and then he started to see these combinations come together. So I thought that was another interesting way, again, of picturing time, because it's an elusive thing that you're dealing with 1/25 1/125th of a second in many cases, which is a fraction of time. But in your photographs, you're actually somehow coalescing generations of time that we can read into your photographs. And that's something that I think is quite remarkable. Another person that Karen mentioned was the work of Jeff Thomas, who's a First Nations artist. He's an urban Iroquois, Onondaga. And he has been grappling, as a lot of us do, with the historical depiction of First Nations in the work of people like Edward Curtis or George Gatlin. And so on this photograph, the black and white it is an old historical photograph that was taken by a settler photographing something that they thought was exotic. And then the color photograph is one that Jeff has done. So he's trying to grapple with the past while living in the present. So again, he's bringing these different generations together into a single photograph. Anyway, those are the observations that came to my mind when looking at your work. And I think I've gone over my time already. So I'll stop there and then look forward to the continuing discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful works.
Those are gorgeous. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so we're gonna go into Lelu, who was the one that read aloud the portrait stories. And she will be reading a personal family story as a theme of the subjects is having East African stories being told by us. So I'll get her to share that now.
Thank you so much, Belinda. So one of the reasons why this this exhibit was just so touching and impactful to me was because my mother is from Kenya, and she came from a time that reminded me of all of the history that we see in this exhibit. I'm just reading off some notes here. So the Ma fighters were mainly drawn from Kenya's major ethnic group. The Ma fighters were essentially the people in Kenya who said that their country was not going, they didn't want their country to be colonized by the British during the time when the British had Kenya in an emergency state for those 8 years. They were more than 1 million strong. By the start of the 1950s, they had been increasingly marginalized as years of white settlers, British settlers, expansion ate away at their land. Kenya's state of emergency lasted from 1952 to 1960, and by 63, Kenya was finally independent. And this was, you know, this tension-filled time when Kenya was having to find its own roots and everything was just up in the air because they were starting again from scratch after years of being colonized. My grandfather, Robin, he was a former professor in Uganda, and he was the assistant to the manager of a tea factory. And when Kenya gained independence in 1961, the colonial rule now ended, and all the British colonizers who had big estates, who had big companies, who were in charge of everything, were now sent back to the UK. Now, Jomo Kenyatta was the first Kenyan president of independent Kenya during this time. And it was then that my grandfather, the status of his job at the tea factory was hanging in the balance because his job title was up for a promotion. You see, his manager, who was British, had to go back to the UK. And my grandfather was next in line to take his position. There was a man who worked below my grandfather from the Luo tribe who coveted that manager position. So he invited my grandfather over for dinner and poisoned his food. And in that way, you know, my grandfather was killed. Kenya gaining its independence and ending the colonial rule caused a lot of disruption, tension, disarray, and their world was turned upside down, and they had to find a new way to put down their roots without the British. It's unfortunate because my grandfather was collateral damage in the ending of Kenya's colonialism. My mom was 4 years old with a baby brother and 3 older siblings when her father was killed. And and they just essentially had to start anew. They had to start from scratch. Fortunately, my grandfather had money saved up from being a professor in Uganda, and my grandmother was able to use that money to purchase 50 acres, 8 hours drive from Nairobi, to start a farm. And that's where my mom grew up. And that is basically what this exhibition reminded me of, all of that history and all of the stories that we have stirring inside of us. So I'm deeply appreciative for this platform and for this opportunity that we can share all of these stories with each other.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Lastly, I would just get Dawit to give some closing remarks or comments that you may have before we start to answer any questions that we have in the comments.
Yeah, so Stephen has given us a lot of perspectives in storytelling, and also how portraiture and also how to represent time and generational passing of the stories and things and so on. So I believe telling our own stories is important, because we are intimate to it, we are we relate to it, and we really care and want other world to represent us in the best way possible. So I believe telling our own stories is very important. So if you have questions, we can see the questions now.
All right, I'll just read some of them aloud to you that I see so that you can answer them. I see, after all the soldiers returned home from fighting, were the vets supported in life through careers, education, starting businesses, etc.? What was the level of support for them from both government and people?
So the association, last time the president was explaining that to us. So every year the government gives allocates some fund for the association as a pension, and also to give to, because these people are seniors now. These people don't have work now, and most of them has been also being disabled in some parts and in some way because of these wars. So as a compensations, the association has allocated some amount of money from the government, and they provide them financial assistance every month. And he says that, and also they have their own building, and also they are developing cultural institutes, so that they can have their own money, and also this history should be preserved and so on. So last time the president of the Patriot Association was explaining me that. So currently celebrating these cultural events, memorial events, and also supporting them every month is what they are doing at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. I also see from Sadie, in the Battle of Adwa, women brought their own soldiers and participated in battles, correct? I believe that was a question.
It was more of a commentary. I hope so. Like I mentioned earlier, the Empress Taitu also has been leading the war, so she had contributed so much in the strategy, and also leading some part of some group of people as Hamsaleka, Metwaleka, Shialeka. Those are people who lead 1,000 soldiers, 100 soldiers, 550 soldiers, and so on. So she had a big role in leading the wars as well. So it's also a big contribution and an inspiration and a woman figure in the Ethiopian history. So whenever not only on these wars, whenever there is a woman empowerment thing, And also there is a woman icon in the Ethiopian history. Empress Taitu is also one of the icons of Ethiopian history, representing women power and women leadership and so. Yeah.
Awesome. I think those are all the questions I see. I think the rest are commentary, but it's all really positive commentary. I see indeed profound, powerful. So that's great. Thank you guys. If anyone else has any more questions or comments that they want to share in the chat, please feel free to do so now. Otherwise, I think I'm going to get Claudia to queue up the slideshow once more. And
yeah, we'll show the slideshow and then I'll just say thank you while the images are rolling through. Thank you so much, Stephen. I'm glad you included Dawit Bey's images in there because I actually wanted to see if he would comment on this because of that body of work, so it was perfect. He wasn't available because he's, as you know, crazy busy. So thanks for sharing that and the other two references with the Canadian photographers and the Indigenous, the Canadian photographers who documented the war in Iraq as well as the Indigenous historical juxtaposition from the two artists that you've got in your portfolio there. So thank you so much. Dawit and Belinda, it was great to hear this discussion. Belinda and Lelu are two of the emerging curators that we have as a part of a curatorial residency we're putting together to help create opportunities for emerging curators to work on projects at BAND as we shift and try to help create more opportunities for emerging curators across this landscape that we call Canada. So congratulations. If we could clap aloud, if you can hear us, we'd be clapping you, Belinda. It was her first time at this, so we're super proud of the research and the work that she put into this. And I mean, this work by Dawit is amazing. As I said, if you haven't had a chance to see it and you're not comfortable coming inside, there is, the images you're seeing are a mix of what's inside the gallery and outside. And if you are coming to see the work inside, you can book an appointment online. We have isolation time visits, so when you book, that time is just for you, and we try not to have more than 4 people in the gallery at a time because it is small space. So, and we ask that you respect the rules of COVID by coming with folks that are within your isolation bubble. As most of you know, the gallery is open from Thursday to Sunday, Thursday to Saturday, 12 to 6, and Sunday, 1 to 5. Am I forgetting anything, Claudia? I don't think so, because Claudia is quiet. If there's any more comments, I'll let you and Belinda take it over. And excited to see where this exhibition might end up. It's exceptional work, so thank you for being patient with us, Dawit. This has been in the roster for 2 years, and we finally had the budget to print them at the quality we wanted, so.
Let me play some music.
Yes, please, music, and I'll stop talking.
Thank you everyone for joining. I'm just going to close this out by saying it's been an honor to have this as my first curatorial work in collaboration with Band and Dawit, and to be a part of honoring his gorgeous work and having this conversation with him. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much, likewise.
If you haven't had the chance to check out the exhibition yet, as Karen has mentioned several times, it's by appointment, but there's also work available outside. So if you're able to, and if it's safe enough for you, I highly recommend you check it out. As I'm in Edmonton and I can't check it out, hopefully I will be able to soon. But yeah, if you have the opportunity, please do so.